So my name is Dave Gardner. I work for Mason County Community Services and Public Health, and I am the program coordinator for our opioid response plan. And I have with me
Tamara Hines, and I work for Capital Recovery Center in Olympia, and I am also a person in recovery.
And we are both proud Mason County residents. So I'd like to start off, Tamara, by just asking you a bit about yourself. Would you mind telling us and our viewers and our audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, let's see. So I've been living in Shelton for a little over 3 years. I started my recovery process a little over 2 years ago. Had some bumps and hiccups along the way, but as of today, I have 8 months and 27 days.
Awesome.
So I'm pretty proud of that. I have a great job. I was a participant actually at Capital Recovery Center, and then now I am an employee. And
Tell me a little bit about your family.
I've been with my husband, I guess. We're not legally married, but we've been together going on 16 years. And we have a 10-year-old son at home and another child on the way in February.
Awesome.
All of these things I have I owe it all to my recovery, actually. The last 9 months have been, I would say, the best 9 months of my life. We were homeless for a long time, not just in Mason County, but in Pierce County as well. And then we came from Pierce County, we came to Mason County, and struggled with homelessness a little bit and addiction. Got a lot of help and services through Crossroads Housing and Northwest Resources. And thanks to all of them and the faith that so many people in this community had in us that we couldn't find at the time, we've been in our home for going on 2 years. We're both working full time. We pay all of our own bills, which to some people might sound, like, well, everybody does that. No, not everybody does that. I'm almost 35 years old, and this is the first time in my life that I pay my rent and I pay it on time. I pay, all my other bills. And the first time in my life that I'm not on any state assistance. It's different. Yeah, it's scary, but it's growth.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't trade anything that I wouldn't trade anything that I have. I wouldn't.
Excellent. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So I want to touch on, so you and I crossed paths probably about almost 2 years ago now. So if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about how you and I first came in contact with each other and how we've grown to know each other over the last couple of years.
Well, so about almost 2 years ago, my husband, myself, and my son were staying in the family shelter, and we were there for about 6 months. And still using off and on, probably, more than we should have, obviously. Right at the end of the 6 months, we got onto their housing program, found our house, and moved in. And I overdosed before we moved into our apartment, but didn't go. I didn't go to the hospital or anything. We took care of it ourselves. But then when we moved into our apartment, a few weeks later, I overdosed again. And this time I needed medical assistance and went to the hospital and spent some time there. and the next day I got a phone call from Abe. Still, feeling the effects of the day before, still, a little paranoid because at the time I didn't know that kind of stuff is public record or whatever. So I had a bunch of people calling me, telling me that they knew what had happened, and at the same time I'm trying to hide it from Northwest Resources, the shelter, so that I don't lose my housing. And you had just called and wanted to make sure that I was okay, if I needed anything, if there was any other services that I needed. And I would have to say, even though I had never met you at that time, something inside me told me that I could trust you. And from that point on, then I started seeing you around town in different places. And you were very encouraging and one of the only people I think at that time that I felt I could trust in this community. I then tried getting back into treatment and started trying to get clean again. And I remember when I relapsed again, you were like one of the first people that came to my mind to call and to get a hold of and to find out, like, where do I go from here? What do I do from here? Yeah. And then at that time I was also working at Community Lifeline here in town. And you at that time had come to do a couple of your, I forget what they're called, the opioid
overdose prevention
yeah.
workshops. Yeah.
And so I would talk to you a few times when you would come to do that, and I would just tell you where I'm at in my life and my fears and things that I needed help with, and always felt that you were one of the only people that there was never any judgment. And even still, because there's a lot of people that look at recovery different ways, and you're one of the only ones I still feel that is open-minded to anything. And so and then that just leads us to today.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing, and I also want to thank your willingness to be open today, and be vulnerable and share your story with the community.
Yeah.
And wanted to ask you, what your recovery looks like now, and what that means to you.
Well, my recovery today is extremely different than when I first started, even 2 years ago, but it's even more different today than it was 9 months ago. When I got back into recovery this time, my husband and I were using pretty bad. I lost my job that I had for 2.5 years. We were on the brink of losing our home. Somehow we've made it this far and not lost our son. I don't know how. But I remember the last day just sitting in my home and looking around me, and for once in my life I couldn't believe where I was and what I was seeing. And so I made a decision that day that I was going to do whatever it took, and I wasn't going to let anybody tell me otherwise. I at that point knew what I needed. Yeah. And I wasn't going to let anybody tell me, well, this is our process and this is what we're recommending, because I went off of people's recommendations every other time and it didn't work. And so I decided to get on Suboxone and get back into treatment. And at this time when I started, I didn't miss any classes. I went to group every time I was supposed to. But what I did different this time is I was too scared to be alone with myself or be alone at home, so I was always in a meeting. Yeah. Always in a meeting. And I started out in the back of the room, but very, very fast moved to the front of the room because I knew that I had to do everything different this time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wasn't going to make it.
Right.
It's been almost 2 years now, too, that my husband overdosed and he was dead. And it was one of the scariest things I'd ever seen. I've overdosed many a times, but you don't really see when it's you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just didn't want to do it anymore. And so today my job also helps keep me clean and sober.
Yeah.
So my building shares with the Needle Exchange in Olympia.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still see people that are in active addiction.
Yeah.
I am still in treatment. I only see a counselor once a month, and I am in their Core 12 program.
Excellent.
And the guys that are an inpatient come to group with us. And there's a couple of them that I know from the streets and that I know now. And it's hard seeing people still struggle.
Right.
But it helps me, I guess, even though that's kind of sad to say. But it just reminds me every day where I don't want to be.
Right. Right.
I am able today to set boundaries with even those around me that are the closest.
Yeah.
Drugs and alcohol are not allowed around me. They're not allowed in my home. I don't think I'm better than those that choose to do those things. I just know for myself and my family it's not something that I can do because for myself it just takes one drink and then I'm all the way over here.
Right.
And it's just not something that I can do today.
Yeah. Good for you. Yeah, healthy boundaries are important.
Yeah.
So you've shared a little bit so far about the different services that you've accessed here in the community, and that you've utilized and have helped you to get where you are today. You mind sharing a little bit with us about anything you want people to know about those services, or things that have really worked for you in the process and moving through the system?
Well, like I said, I've been using for a long time. And I've been through a lot of different hardships in my life. A lot, is due to my own choices. Some are not. And so I've never really been a good advocate for myself. And so it wasn't until this last time of using like I was and finally getting a clear head and seeing what I was seeing that I decided, I went to another treatment center and thought maybe that would work for me, and it wasn't working. And so I agreed to go back to Northwest Resources. They wanted to send me to inpatient, and they wanted to send my husband to inpatient, and they wanted us to go at the same time, and they wanted us to voluntarily put our son in CPS care. And that was not something I was willing to do, and heard a lot of stuff from different people that, well, if your recovery depends on it, you'd think you'd be willing to do anything. And so I finally had to sit down and look what I really needed and wanted.
Yeah.
And I told them exactly what it was that I wanted and what I needed, and they gave me a chance, and thankfully they did.
Yeah.
And I've made it so far.
Yeah.
I think what's also gotten me this far is just honesty.
Yeah.
Today, lying, even the smallest lies, don't feel good.
Right.
And so I've just learned that the people that are in my life and the agencies or whatever that are in my life,
Yeah.
I choose to be as honest with them as I can, even if it means there's going to be repercussions.
Right.
It's not always easy, but I have found that it gets me a lot further, and I come out being more, happy with myself, and I gain more respect from those around me, being honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are a few things that you would like to share with people that maybe have never experienced substance use or misuse or abuse, and as well as recovery?
That's a hard one. Well, first of all, I know for myself, like, I didn't wake up one day being like, I'm gonna be an addict and I'm gonna start out doing this and end up doing this. I grew up in a very dysfunctional home, and so from the time, from as far back as I can remember, I knew I didn't want to live that way.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I became a teenager that I started catching on to what was really going on in my home as a kid.
Yeah.
And so I made a commitment to myself that I didn't want to do that to myself, and if I ever had a family, I didn't want to do that to my family.
Yeah. Yeah.
I, for a long time, was able to do that until I was 18, and that's when I started using, and the first drug I tried was meth. I never smoked cigarettes, I never drank, I never smoked weed. But at 18, I started feeling as though I didn't fit in anywhere, and so I wanted to fit in.
Yeah.
And so I would just want people to know that, yeah, it's probably dumb choices and, not somewhere that we want to be, because it's not.
Yeah.
But when you first pick up that first drug or drink, it's not going through your mind that it's going to be something you're going to do the rest of your life.
Right.
And so I think that there just needs to be more compassion for people, because I don't think I know for myself, I wanted to quit a long time ago. I just didn't know how.
Yeah.
What was once fun turned into something that was ruining my life, and I no longer had control over.
Right.
And then, I'm sorry, what was the other part you wanted?
Well, no, I think that you've answered that question beautifully, and I just want to transition into, obviously I feel like the work you're doing is really giving people a second chance or a connection into some solutions, and you're really providing some hope through your job as well as through what you do in the community and being here right now. So is there a message of hope that you'd like to share with those that are still struggling, and or to families that have loved ones that are struggling?
That's also another hard one. So it always hurts my heart, probably more than it should, maybe, when I still see people using, or when I hear that someone is overdosed, even if they, didn't die, because I know where they're at and I know what it feels like. I would just say, and I even told someone this the other day, like, this is a matter of life and death, and one day you're not going to wake up from it, and it's time to choose something different. As hard as that might be, it's just this time to choose something different, and you just gotta let yourself trust, and there's gonna be somebody out there that cares for you and that's gonna be willing to help you and see you all the way through it. You know what I mean? I always hate when people say this, but if I can do it, if my family and I can do it, then I think that anybody can do it. I know the struggle, though. I'm not saying it's easy, because I came from the bottom and I'm working my way up. And another thing I would just say is just don't give up on what it is that you want, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise, because if I were to have done that, I don't think I would be where I'm at today. Nobody knows what you need or want more than you, and so don't give up on that, I guess is what I would say. I've overdosed many times, but there's only one time that I had to go to the hospital, and when my husband overdosed, he had to go to the hospital. And so the question is there anything you feel needs improvement in our community? And as soon as I read that, I instantly went to our hospitals. Our hospitals really need some education on addicts and the fact that we're humans too, and we're people too, and not looking at us as though, well, we did this to ourselves and so we don't deserve care. You know, I have a vision one day, and it could already be happening. I feel that there needs to be advocates for people when they overdose, just like there is for women when they get assaulted. It's a very scary place, a very vulnerable place when you overdose and you're in the hospital laying there. It's one of the scariest things I've ever been through in my life. And it was late at night, of course, and they were just so ready to get us out of there. And we had no way home. And so of course, the only person I could get a hold of was my dealer. And so I know nothing's a quick fix. I know there's a lot of things involved in getting things set up, but I think if we could reach people when they're in the hospital, when they're in their most vulnerable state, and not wait a couple days or just send them home with a piece of paper and hope that they do something good with it, I think it would go a long way. Because like I shared, I wanted to quit years ago, and you know, it been in the hospital many other times for other reasons due to my use, and would tell the doctors there, like, I really want to get clean, but I don't know how. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard them say, I don't know what to tell you. And that's scary, and that's sad, because I'm sure if I feel that way, there's other people that are sitting at home or in the hospital with the same thoughts. And so I think as a community, it's time to really, really sit down and look at what we can do, and not just talk about it, but actually put something in motion, because we're never going to know if something's going to work unless we try. And I think now is as good of a time as any to just start giving little things a try, and you never know what's going to work.
Right.
So that's what I wanted to say about that, is that
Awesome.
Our hospitals, our doctors need a little bit more education, and we need, you know, people like myself to go and help our brothers and sisters when they're at their most vulnerable.
Yeah. And we have a goal. You know, we have a goal here within this department, and you know, in the community, that I think we share, that we want to make sure that people know that there is hope. That recovery is a good thing. You know, there's saying in the programs that we're only as sick as our secrets, right? And I think that goes not only in an individual level, but a community level. And so if we don't talk about these things, if people like you don't get in front of a camera and get vulnerable and share your experience, strength, and hope, it makes it more difficult for others. So I just want to thank you on behalf of Public Health, Mason County, and just on a personal level as well, for your willingness to be here with us today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome.